The buzzer crackled. 2 cops at the door, hats low, radios hissing. 3 minutes later, 500 million in beauty would be swallowed by darkness, or so the night would remember it. The guard stared into the lens. Do you let the law in, or let history out? Inside, silence thick as velvet. Marble floors, dark galleries, frames like windows into other centuries. On this night, the treasure was not money, but time. Time the thieves could stretch, bend, and escape inside. 1 door, 1 decision. A fortune balanced on a fingertip. They tied up the guards, cut masterpieces right out of their frames. The basement smelled of concrete and tape. A handcuff clicked. The clock forgot to breathe. Silver ducting hissed overhead as canvases whispered loose, fibers sighing. Art severed from history with a blade's careless certainty. To understand the wound, meet the soul who built the body. Isabella Stewart Gardner, a firebrand with a taste for the audacious, raised a Venetian dream in Boston's marshland. She hung her rooms by instinct, decree, and love, as if shaping a single breathing artwork. Beauty needs guardians. It got compromises. Alarms that rang to a desk, not the police. Cameras on tape, not the cloud. A policy written for courtesy, not calamity. Open the door if officers knock. Security saved pennies and gambled centuries. The odds were terrible. The house lost.
What vanished that night? A storm torn from the sea, Rembrandt's only seascape, a lost concert, Vermeer's music stilled mid-note, a gentleman in black, a Chinese beaker, 5 fleet-footed Degas. 13 works that stitched centuries together were ripped like threads from a tapestry. The calendar dealt them a joker, St. Patrick's Day weekend. Boston pulsed green and loud, bars spilled singers, streets steamed with breath and beer. At 1:24 a.m., a knock, a badge, a line. Police, there's a disturbance. Hospitality met deception. The door released its sigh. Inside the white box of the security office, doubt flickered. IDs flashed, radios cracked. Authority wore a costume. The guard buzzed them past the gate, then found his wrists kissing steel and tape. He was told to face the wall. The building's heart slowed to a crawl. They moved with calm impatience. No gallery skipped twice. A blade found the seam. A tug found surrender. Frames stayed like halos with nothing to bless. The thieves understood one thing. Canvas folds smaller than a box. Art conservators would later whisper, the wounds never close. Time, their real loot, stretched. Not 3 minutes, 81. They even paused to lift a bronze eagle finial, left the most valuable Titian untouched, and stole a lowly beaker with a king's ransom and mystery. They left with a tape missing from the previous night. Questions multiplied. Dawn found a museum bleeding absence. Empty frames still hung by Isabella's decree, no substitutions ever, so the void would testify. Reporters swarmed the snowy curb. The city discovered a new kind of winter, a chill that clung to memory and wouldn't melt. Whispers of the Irish mob, the Patriarcha family, a sailor with a secret locker, a collector who preferred shadows. Everyone knew someone who knew someone. But tips are not evidence. A masterpiece can vanish behind a single lie told well. Inside the palazzo, a ritual of grief began. Staff dusted emptiness. Tourists stood as if at a bedside vigil, reading plaques that described ghosts. The museum posted a reward that grew like a plea. The frames remained, like doorways sealed by air, waiting for their missing breath. Vermeer left the world a slender harvest, barely 36 paintings. One, the concert, dissolved in that night's silence. Try to imagine a note so pure it stuns the room. Then imagine it cut short. That's what we lost. Not just image, but an unwound hush. Rembrandt painted tempests like confessions. His only seascape showed terror braided with faith. What does a storm look like when the sea itself is missing? The frame answers. It looks like edges, splinters, and the faint outline of everything we can't make whole again.
Theories stalked the case like cats at night. An inside hand, a careless habit, a knock misread. The guard's choices were audited like a ledger, then like a diary. Officially, no charges. Unofficially, a city's long whisper. Truth, meanwhile, kept its poker face. Years later, agents would trace faint footprints, whispers of the loot moving through New England, then south, swapping hands like contraband lullabies. None of it in public. Paintings breathe, but not in basements. Somewhere, canvases rolled tight, learned to forget the light. A meeting in Philadelphia promised a door opening. Someone knew someone who could see the art. Agents wore wires. Coffee cooled. The room filled with almosts and maybes, until the thread snapped. In a case like this, hope is currency, and counterfeit runs rampant. The gardener chose absence as testimony. Frames left hanging, defiantly empty, became a philosophy. We don't replace what the world can't replace. Visitors learned to read silhouettes. Art history grew a chapter about shadows and the shape of what should be. Popular myth says a billionaire villain buys stolen art for a secret wall. Reality is messier. Laundered pieces become bargaining chips, get out of jail tokens, or sink into bunkers of fear. Masterpieces do not travel well in shame. They crave audience, like lungs crave air. Anne Hawley, director then, faced cameras with a steadiness born of duty. She spoke of patience, partnership, and the stubbornness of beauty. You could hear a vow under every answer. One day, they come home. Leaders can't promise miracles, but they can make space for them. Boston folded the case into its folklore, a town of stoops, triple-deckers, and long memories. On porches in Dorchester, in North End cafes, talk bent back to the frames. In winter, you could almost see the story condense in the breath, ghosts you could exhale. A quarter century on, agents said they knew the culprits, career criminals long gone to silence. The message was clear. The who mattered less than the where. A press room held its breath. This wasn't closure. It was a map with one crucial street missing. Then, the closest brush. A broker hinted at proof. Terms were whispered, then hardened, then cracked. Legal lines are razor thin when ransom meets reward. The museum kept the door open, and the law kept the ledger tight. The moment passed like a train at night. Conservation labs studied the scars left behind. Imprint shadows on backings, flecks of pigment trapped in frame grooves, hints of how fast and where the blade bit. Science can reconstruct a gesture, but not the hand. The crime kept its face under wraps. Security changed everywhere. Museums rewrote hospitality into hesitation. Two-factor doors, remote alarms, layered perimeters, guards trained to question the very idea of a badge. Beauty would still welcome the world, but now through narrower threshold. What keeps the case alive isn't just the price tag. It's the ache of interruption. A Vermeer withheld is a candle snuffed in a dark hospital corridor. A Rembrandt missing is thunder with no rain. The city's ears ring with a storm that never breaks. And the guards? They carried years on their shoulders. Statements given, timelines replayed in sleepless loops. One decision can become a room you never leave. But blame is not a locksmith. History is.
The door back to peace opens only when the art returns. At sunrise, the courtyard keeps its vow. Ferns arc toward the light. Water mutters at the fountain. Marble remembers touch. The building is a patient one. It holds the shapes of lost things until the world is ready to hold them again. So here is the open question, hanging like a frame with no canvas. Where do we put beauty when it vanishes? Into vaults? Into rumors? Into prayer? If you know a door that leads from darkness to daylight, the city is listening. The buzzer still waits.